Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So we will continue our study from the 106th verse of the Vivekachudamani, where we will find it is highlighted by Shankaracharya that the sense objects are not the source of happiness. That we generally think that the sense objects, all the happiness comes from the sense objects. That what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch, and what we taste. These are the five senses. Through this, whatever we are gathering in, this is a type of ahar. Ahar doesn't mean only taking food. Aharate iti ahara. That whatever we are gathering in through the five senses is ahar. And that constitutes our happiness. That's what we feel. But here in the 106th verse, Shankaracharya is going to highlight the fact that sense objects are not the source of happiness. It is the self and self alone which is the source of all happiness. So what it is saying, Atmarthatvena hi priyan vishayo na swatah priyah swata eva hi sarvesham atma priyotamo yatah tata atma sadanando na asya dukkham kadachana. So, what it is saying, Atmarthatvena hi priyan. The objects of the world are dear only for the sake of Atman. Atma arthatvena. Only for the artha, the purpose. What serves the happiness for us, it is only the Atma. Atma arthatvena hi priyan. Priya means that is the source of happiness. So objects of the world are dear only, this prayan of all the objects of the world, this prayer, whatever we desire, they are dear to us only because Atman is there behind them. If Atman is not there, the objects by themselves can never give us happiness. So the objects of the world are dear only for the sake of the Atman. Vishayo na swatah priya. They are not dear by themselves. So by themselves, they don't have the capability to give us happiness. What to speak of happiness? Even a tinge of happiness. As Shankaracharya in the 66th verse of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the commentary, there he is indicating that the sense objects doesn't have the capacity to give us even a tinge of happiness. Gandha matra, even the tinge, not even the flavor. All the happiness comes from the self. Swata eva hi sarvesham atma priyotama yata. For the Atman is dear to everyone by itself. Swata, by itself. Swata eva hi sarvesham. For everyone atma priyotama yata. The Atman is dear to everyone by itself. It doesn't need any other objects for its happiness. By itself it is happy. Tato atma sadanando na asya dukkham kadachana. That Atman is always in happiness. Sada ananda. It is having incessant happiness. It is a perennial source of happiness. Kadachit, this kadachana dukkha na asya. There is no trace of misery in it. So, this is the idea which we discuss again and again, that all happiness comes from the self, that the satisfaction of our desires, satiation of our desires never gives us happiness. It is the desirelessness which gives us happiness, not the desire. When the desire is fulfilled, our mind is calm and the self reflects through our body-mind complex, and as the Ananda factor of the self is no more obliterated, is not filtered out, so that happiness comes from the self. That's the thing which we realize. So Atman is Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa. That's what we say. Now again and again we have mentioned that it is mentioned in our scriptures that the self is beyond all attributes. Then why here the scripture is saying it is Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa, or Sat Chit Ananda? These three Swarupata are the attributes of Atman? No. Just to understand the word Sat Chit Ananda, we have to understand it in the sense of negation. It's not something which speaks of some positive attribute. It's a negation. What's the negation? That at present, when I think of myself as an individual, what's the idea? I was born at certain point of time, I'm going to die at certain point of time, and even when I am living, I am going through Shara Vikara, the 6 changes. This Jayate, Asti, Vardhate, Viparinamate, Apakshiyate, Nasti. I am born at certain point of time, I grow, I exist, and then in the middle age the transformation starts, and then the decay process starts, Viparinamate, Apakshiyate, and then at last the death comes. So even when I'm existing, I'm going through constant change. I wasn't there, I won't be there as a physical existence. And even when I'm there, I'm going through all those changes. So when the scripture says that the Atman is Sat Swarupa, it is actually negating to the idea of this limited existence. What's the definition of Sat in our scriptures? That which is Trikal Avadhita, that is Satya. That whose existence is never interrupted by any phase of time, past, present, future. It was, it is, it will be, and it is always in eternal present without any transformation. That this phase of time, whenever we say past, present, future, this phase of time comes into existence only when there is a transformation. If nothing is changing, if there is no transformation, the concept of time collapses. There is no time. So as there is no change, Atman is in eternal present. It was, it is, it will be in the eternal present, as there is no transformation. So by saying that it is Sat, it is negating the idea of its limited existence. And then it's saying it is Chit. Now when you say that the ultimate reality is something which can never be annihilated, then again the idea comes that most probably the ultimate reality is something jada, is something which is inert. That somehow the so-called jada, all the inert matter, have conglomerated to accidentally create consciousness. So to negate this idea that consciousness is not the byproduct of the conglomeration of matter, that it is actually the fundamental principle behind the existence, that it alone is the phenomenon, everything else is the epiphenomenon. It is the ultimate reality. To assert that fact, to negate the idea that we are ultimately something jada, to negate that idea, after saying Sat, they are saying Chit, that the ultimate reality which can never be annihilated, which is in the eternal present, is conscious. And then comes the Ananda Swarupata. What is Ananda Swarupata? It is also the negation. That when somehow I understand that I am eternal and I am consciousness, but when I see my life, I find that I am going through phases of happiness, followed by depression, misery, again some happiness, some little moment of happiness, again followed by turmoil, tension. So is this flow, this wave, in the form of sometime I'm in the crest of happiness, and then again I'm in the wave of misery? Am I an helpless creature that going through eternity just in the throngs by as decided by the circumstances, sometimes happy, sometimes rejected? So here again there's a negation. The scripture says no. The real you, who is Sat Swarup, who is Chit Swarup, is Ananda Swarup. That is having that Sadananda. That word Sadananda is here. Na dukkha kadachana. It is always in bliss, eternal bliss. Then why don't we realize that eternal bliss? Why? that in life, what is happening, our desires actually is obscuring our happiness. The happiness which is already within us, the perennial source of happiness, is getting obscured, obliterated because of our desires. Swami Vivekananda gives that example in Raja Yoga, wonderful example, that our mind is like a lake and our real nature is as if like the bottom of the lake. In the lake, when there are a lot of waves and the water is turbulent and the water is full of turgidity, lot of impurity, because of the wave, because of the turgidity, I cannot see the bottom of the ocean. I cannot see. But if the lake is calm, the water is clear and the lake is calm, the water is still, then I can see the bottom of the lake. You will find that when the water is calm, even in a river, you can see the bottom of the river if it is calm, the water is clean. In the swimming pool, when all are swimming, the water is turbulent. When no one is swimming, the water is still, you can see the bottom of the swimming pool. So Swamiji, what is saying? That our mind is always full of thoughts. Our mind, which is like the lake, is full of thoughts, concerns, desires. They are like the waves. It's constantly turbulent. When the mind is turbulent, these two things of this ourself, the Sat, Chit, Ananda Swarupata, the Sat Swarupata, the Chit Swarupata, they never get obscured. Even when I am dejected, I am aware of my existence. When I am happy, then also I am aware of my existence. So my awareness of my existence never gets obliterated. So Sat Swarupata, Chit Swarupata, this never gets obliterated. It is always there with me. But when my mind is disturbed, what gets obliterated is Ananda Swarupata. It is like selective filtration. If you go to very hot places like in India, like Rajasthan, in the olden days, they used to have the window with a mica sheet. Why the mica sheet? The mica sheets allow the light to pass in, but it will insulate the heat. So light can come in. So you're in the daytime, your room is lighted, but it insulates the heat. That tremendous heat, the terrible heat there, that is insulated. So it is selective filtration. It's allowing the light, but it is not allowing the heat. So the mind also does the selective filtration. The Sat Swarupata, the Chit Swarupata, that never gets filtered. What gets filtered is the Ananda Swarupata when the mind is disturbed. Now when I have an intense desire, what happens? All the small desires, they are as if swallowed by that big desire. You will find that when I have an intense desire for something, my mind is constantly thinking of that. Everything else has been shadowed. And I am trying to fulfill that desire. And the moment that desire is fulfilled, suppose I want something, I want the latest model car or the laptop, whatever it may be. The moment I get it, I manage to get it, I find there's a tremendous bliss. That for some exam I was desiring to get certain particular grade. I was tense. I never knew whether I'm going to get that grade or not. The moment I find I have performed satisfactorily, I'm at bliss. And I think my grades have given me happiness. The laptop has given me happiness. It is my car which has given me happiness. These are objects. But here the sloka is saying the objects doesn't have the power to give happiness. It is the self and the self alone which gives the happiness. How? The moment I get the object, the mind for the time being becomes calm. A let go ensues. The mind was turmoil. All the waves were speaking of my desire. I want this, I want this. The moment you get it, the mind is calm. There is no desire for the time being. As we told, when the mind is disturbed, the Ananda Swarupata, that gets obscured. The moment the mind becomes still, now the Ananda Swarupata, that permeates through your being, through your body, mind, senses. It is actually coming from within. It is welling up from within with that relaxation, with that calmness of the mind. It comes. Now it's no more filtered. It is coming out from within. It is actually coming from the Anand, from the Ananda Swarupata of the Atman, which is Sadananda, which is always happy. It is always in bliss. But it was obscured by the mind, with all the vagaries of the mind. The moment the mind became calm, that Ananda Swarupata started permeating my body, my mind, my senses. It started welling up from within. And I get the notion that it is the object which has given me happiness. Why? And that's the cause, that is because of ignorance. That's the ignorance. That's the ajnana. That's the maya, you can say. That I am not seeing. What is the meaning of word maya? That's the negation of yathayatha. Ya means yathayatha. To see the thing as it is. The ma means negation of that. That I am not seeing the thing as it is. That when the happiness is actually coming from within, I am constantly mistaking by thinking that the object which I got just now has given me happiness. So in this world, that objects can never give us any happiness. It doesn't have the capacity to give even a small little flavor of happiness. All the happiness comes from within. So that's the idea which has been spoken of in the 106th verse. This Atmarthatvena hi prayan vishaya na swata priya. Swata eva hi sarvesham atma priyotamo yatah tatah atma sadananda na asya dukkham kadachana. So as we find even in the Brihadaranyaka, this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that this famous conversation of Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, where Yajnavalkya is instructing Maitreyi in Brahmagyana, in the knowledge of Brahman. And that in the process, what he's saying, Nava are sarvasya kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. That everything becomes dear to us, not for the thing itself, but for the self, everything becomes dear to us. Nava are, the same idea. Nava are sarvasya kamaya sarva priyam bhavati. It is not that for the object itself. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. So even we find in some other context, in the same Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we find that what is mentioned, tat etat preyah putrat preyah vittat preyah anyasmat sarvasmat antaratarang yat ayam atma. So it is dearer than you think that my son is my dearest. It is again maya. You are not seeing the thing as it is. The self actually is the dearest. It is not when you say my son is dearest. Why I love my son? That when I love my son, in loving the process, I get a feeling of happiness. It is actually the feeling of happiness, a subjective feeling. For that I love my son. So this is a subjective feeling is something which I like, which I take it as my love for the son. Anything you love. Unless you get that have that feeling of that pleasantness, happiness. Can you really love something? I am loving, when I love, that feeling which I have within, actually I am loving that. And that comes from within. So that's the thing which is being mentioned. It is not that your son is the thing who is dearest to you. It is your own self. Tat etat preya putrat, in comparison to your son. Preya vittat, compared to your wealth. Anything. Preya anyasmat sarvasmat antarataram yat ayam atma. Because atma is something intrinsic. That is something which you can never get rid of. It is your essence. Other things are all just adages. They are something superfluous. You can get rid of them. But the Atman, your own self, that you can never get rid of because it is the essence of your existence. As we find Swami Ranganathananda used to relate, our 13th president. He used to relate a very wonderful story. He was in Burma. So this is now the Myanmar. For some time we had a center long back, before the independence of India, long back. We had a center, and we know that when Burma became independent, that all the foreigners who were there, for work or for any other purpose. They have settled there. So immediately they made a rule that they have to leave the country. So they gave a very short time, some 48 hours or whatever it may be. Within a few days, they all have to vacate the country. So now there was a huge exodus. Lot of Indians were there in Burma. They all have to come back. So now when coming back, they thought many things to be essentials. So they made a big baggage, which they thought that most of the things they cannot carry, of course. That when they are just crossing the border, just whatever baggage they think is essential, they carry it. Most other things they have left off there itself. Now, as they were walking towards the border, after some time they find that the baggage is too heavy. They cannot carry. They sat down, again opened the baggage. Among all those so-called essentials, again they thought, what is really essential, what is not essential. So at last, again they started discarding so many things. They just left out in the road. They, again, just with this lighter luggage, again they started traveling. And after some time, again they felt, no, it still is heavy, they cannot carry. After all, they have to walk a long distance. Again they started getting rid of so many things. Those all things they thought essential. And at last, when they crossed the border, it is they alone who cross the border. So that's the idea which Ranganathanji is giving when he is explaining this idea that the self is something which is dearest. You can leave everything because they are something superfluous. You cannot leave yourself because that is the essence of your existence. That is something intrinsic. So that's the idea which is being mentioned. The stat etat preya, putrat preya, vittat preya, anyasmat, sarvasmat, antaratarang. It is something within you. Antaratarang. You cannot jump out of yourself. Antaratarang. Yat ayam atma. So this is the idea. So all the things we love are because they make us feel good. So that's the real thing. So the gross does not... See now, at last you will find that what I love is the Atman only. Because that is the essence of my being. Even when in the waking state, this all the gross objects which I see, when I am in dreaming, they have all fallen off. And when I am in the deep sleep, even my mind has fallen off. All the sukshma, the subtle things which I am seeing in my mind, they also have fallen off. So what I am with, I am just with myself. And I am enjoying that deep sleep. Is there anyone, even the richest man, may have so much of wealth. Can he think that to enjoy this innumerable happiness, and for that I have resource, why not I live out my sleep? There is no need for sleeping because that is a waste of time. I can use that time for enjoying the things. Can he do that? No. At last he has to go to sleep and be with himself. He has to be swastha. In Sanskrit the word swastha is wonderful. That you can be healthy. We use the word swastha in the sense of health. But the actual meaning is swa plus stha. The one who is residing in himself. Stha means sthita. Stha means sthita, to reside. Where? Swa, in yourself. Unless you're residing in yourself, you can never be happy. You can never enjoy health. You are bound to be full of tensions, concerns. So you have to have some time where you are just with yourself, swastha, because that's the only source of happiness. Unless you're relating to that, you can never get any happiness. So that's the idea which we find even Shankaracharya is indicating in Vivekachudamani. And this idea that in deep sleep, when we are in communion as if with the self, because everything else has fallen off, only the ajnana is there, nothing else is there. The tamas, the ajnana is there, and my mind is free from its engagement with all the so-called gross objects, and even with the subtle things which I see in the dream, that has also fallen off in the deep sleep. That's the state when I am just with myself. That's the idea, and that's why we like it, that we enjoy the deep sleep, because we get some time to be just with myself. So that's the idea which is spoken of in the 107th verse. What it is saying? Yat shushupto nirvishaya atmananda anubhuyate. In Sushupti, in deep sleep, Nirvishaya, all the objects has fallen off. Vishaya has fallen off. And then you only experience what? Atmananda, Atma Ananda. Anubhuyate, experiencing. Anubhuyate means to experience. You experience the bliss of Atman when all the objects has fallen off. And this is something which is proven by all sorts of means of perception. What are they? Shruti, the scripture says so. Pratyaksham, the direct perception says so. Aitijyam, the tradition, where I find that lot of illumined souls, realized souls, their realization, that's the Aitijya. They also say so. And Anumana, even from inference I will find it is Atman and Atman alone that is the source of all our bliss. So the Atman is ever blissful, it never suffers misery. In the dreamless sleep, there is no sense objects, nirvishaya. But the bliss of Atman is experienced then. Atmananda anubhuyate. And this is the thing which is attested, which is confirmed by Shruti, with a sense perception, pratyaksham, by the tradition, that is the aitijyam, and by inference, anumana. So, what's that? That's the dreamless sleep is the state where it is totally nirvishaya. All the objects has fallen off. All the objects which we consider as that it gives us joy, that the things which we hear, the things which we see, the smell, taste, touch, that's what we think are the source of joy. They all have fallen off. Then from where the bliss is coming? Why we enjoy the deep sleep? It is because we are in communion with the self. So it is everyone enjoys at that time the Atmananda Anubhuyate, that's mentioned, which is inherent in that state. It is not dependent on anything which is extraneous. You're just with yourself. So in the domain of, as long as, but even in deep sleep, Ajnana is still there. It's not that you have gone beyond ignorance. So in the domain of ignorance, the highest happiness which we can think of is the deep sleep. There cannot be anything which gives us more bliss than the deep sleep. If you are not allowed to sleep for a few days, you'll go mad. That is something which keeps us integrated. That's the thing which we enjoy most. So that's the thing. In the domain of Ajnana, that is the highest bliss. That is why, though able to obtain pleasure by the thousands, even an emperor, just we were saying, does not wish to live without sleep. That I have so many means of amusement. Can I think of living without sleep? No. I have to go to sleep, because without that I can never be swastha. So what are the Shruti Pramana? As in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is mentioned that Esha Asya Parama Ananda. This Atman, Esha Asya. So they will find in our scripture, whenever they are speaking of self, it is always in neuter gender. Because there is no attributes for it. You cannot give any gender, he, she, nothing. So it is Esha, that. That is the source of supreme bliss. Esha, Sa Esha Asya Parama Ananda. Anand in Taittiriya Upanishad. That's the Shruti. That's mentioned in Shruti. We find it's mentioned. Yes, in Taittiriya Upanishad. Ananda Brahmeti Vyajanat. That no happiness to be Brahman and Brahman alone. Because from that only happiness emanates. What is the Pratyaksha Pramana? Just now we told that in the waking state, all the things which we think gives us happiness, they have fallen. Then from where you are enjoying the sleep? Again, it's the Pratyaksha Pramana. It is the self and self alone which gives you happiness. Aitijya Pramana. That we find that in all the religious traditions, in all the spiritual traditions, the illumined souls, the realized souls, that we find they have gone beyond all wants, all desires. They are always as if in perpetual bliss. From where that bliss comes? Again, our tradition says that when you go beyond desires, you are established in the self, you become all blissful. So the Aitijya also says that. And Anumana. A person loves himself the most compared to all other things that we were saying. Why? Again, because it is the self, the essence of our being, which gives us happiness. So from all the types of pramanas, we find it can be established that the self alone is the source of happiness. So after discussing this section, that it is not the sense objects but the self which is the source of all happiness, then Shankaracharya is coming to the discussion of Maya. Why next to that? Because now it's easy to understand what Maya is. That we are constantly being deluded. We are constantly being deluded by not seeing the thing as it is. The sense objects never give us happiness, but because of that ignorance, we take them as if the source of all our happiness. Now, what is this Maya? That is being defined by Shankaracharya in the 108th verse. What is Maya? 108th and the 109th verse, Shankaracharya will be just defining the Maya. What it is Maya? Avyakta namni, paramesha shakti, anadi avidya, trigunatmika para, karyanumeya, sudhiya eva maya, yaya jagat sarvam idam prasuyate. Avyakta. What is Maya? It is something undifferentiated. Means the world is something which is differentiated, which is perceptible. It is something unperceptible. It is not yet differentiated. We will come to the discussion a little later with the help of some example. We will try to understand what it is meant by undifferentiated. That Maya is called something which is avyakta, undifferentiated. From where it comes? It is the power of the Lord. It doesn't have a separate existence. If it had a separate existence, then what will be the conclusion? That even God is under the spell of Maya. No. Maya is something which is the Shakti of the Lord. It is not something separate. There is no duality. So Paramesha Shakti, it is the Shakti, it is the power of the Lord, of the Ishvara. And then Anadi, it is beginningless, it is always there. Very interesting, it has spoken of as Anadi, but it never says Ananta. No, it is not Ananta. Maya is Anadi, but not Ananta. It is not that it is beginningless as well as endless. It is beginningless, but it do have an end. When we become illumined, there is the spell of Maya is over for me. So it is Anadi, but not Ananta. So it is Anadi, Avidya. Avidya means that which actually is not existing. Vidyamana. The word Avidya came from Vidyamana is Vidya. That which exists is Vidya. Is a negation. That in essence doesn't exist at all. So that's what's meant by the word Avidya. Trigunatmika. It is a composite of three gunas. Sattva, Rajatama. Just first let us have a little translation and then we will go to a bit elaborate discussion to understand what those words actually mean. Para. Para means it is something which is superior to its effect. The world which we see is a product of that Maya. So para means something superior. The cause is always the superior. From the cause comes the effect. So by saying para, it means it is the cause. It is from which the entire manifested universe came into existence. Karyanumeya sudhiya eva maya. Sudhiya means that those sudhi, those who have clear intellect. So they only can infer because of their clear intellect. Anumeya. Karya. From their effect, you cannot see that avyakta, that the thing which is undifferentiated is not perceptible. But from the effect, I can know that it is there. Karya. From the karya means from the effect. Anumeya. I can infer. Who can infer? Sudhiya. Those who are wise. Those whose intellect is clear. They are the sudhi. Dhi is intellect. Su means good. Whose intellect is good? The one whose intellect is clear. So there is sudhi. So such a person, they, by seeing the effect, the world, know that behind it something that undifferentiated, it must be there, which is finding expression as this universe. So the eva maya, and that yaya jagat sarvam idam prasuyate. From that only this world has manifested. Now, sometimes it appears to be very technical. Let us try to understand with some example. that I am in deep sleep. And the moment I wake up, I open my eyes, I look out through the window, I see a beautiful red flower has bloomed in my garden. Okay. Now, how did perception happens? As we give this example again and again, how that perception has happened? When the light falls on my eyes, that light doesn't enter to my brain, it doesn't go to my mind. What goes is that in the retina, when the light touches the retina, it gets converted into some optic nerve current. It is like an electricity. The brain is dark, no light goes there. That something like an electric impulse, that nerve current, goes to a particular center. That center gets activated. It's dark. We think the flower is red, but the red color is actually when that particular frequency of nerve current reaches there, the red color which was dormant, it was there in the mind. The concept of this red color, the flower is not red. The flower has no color. The redness, it is just when something is striking your eyes, it is just a wavelength of light which has no color. And that wavelength of light is getting converted into nerve current. The light is no more there at all. It is pure dark. Just some nerve current is going. And when it reaches that brain center, everything was undifferentiated in your mind. And the moment it strikes there, the redness is generated. And that comes, and this redness is projected. Your mind is actually a projector. It is not what you receive that you see, what you project that you see. You are receiving something. The light fell on my eye. You are receiving something. But that's not what I see. Its function was over here in the eyes itself. It doesn't go beyond the eye. What was carried to my brain was some nerve current. And that activated my mind. All the concepts were there in undifferentiated form. It was there. This particular wavelength, this actual, what happened? This stimuli, this enable like a flash for that color to be emanated from your mind, that goes and envelops the flower to give you a feeling that it is red. So we are giving this one example. All our perceptions are happening that way. So as Swami Vivekananda, you will find in complete works, he is saying our mind is not something empty. That we have an idea that mind is like an empty vessel. When the child is born, it is an empty vessel. And how the learning happens, just like that we fill the empty vessel with some fluid, with some water or some liquid, and the vessel gets full. So learning is something like that. All the knowledge is as if poured into that empty mind and we become knowledgeable. That Swamiji's definition you will find, he is saying that education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. What is that perfection? It's that mind, when mind with all those undifferentiated ideas is always already there, dormant. It is all there. It's all these concepts. They are ignited. External world acts as a stimulus, and that stimulus is activating. So now you will find the entire world which I see is coming from that undifferentiated state of the mind. This stimuli is just activating that undifferentiated state. So what is happening? The stimuli is activating the mind, and then some knowledge is generated from within. So that's why there's the word information. This word itself you will find is very interesting. Information. We think information is something outside which I've gathered in. No. The word information itself will say what the word information means. Information that has formed within. Information. In plus formation. What has formed within. That is information. Information is not something outside which you have gathered in. It has formed. So all the informations are there. It's in the way, it's in undifferentiated form. External world is acting as a stimuli. Now what are these three guna? That's Maya is Trigunatmika. When this potency is there, when a stimuli is there, there's something which is tamas. Tamas is the dormant state. So from the tamas, the knowledge comes, the information comes. The moment it comes, then another part of the mind is there to react on it, to respond to it. That if I am a devotee, after waking up I see the red flower, I feel, oh, that's the flower which has to be offered to the divine. I may go to the garden, pluck it, and just offer it in the altar. If I am just a, lover of nature, I won't pluck it. I will find only one flower is there. Why not water the plant nicely so that it have more flowers? So your responses will be different as per your likings, temperaments and all. So from where that response is coming? Again, from the mind. That as we were discussing in the last class, that we think that it is the external body, there's the muscles with which we are reacting. Swami Vivekananda in very simple way is saying, just a bodybuilder when he's lifting the weight, I think it is the muscles which is lifting the weight. You just cut the thin nerve which is connecting his brain with the muscles. Just cut it. That huge muscles have no power to lift the weight. What from the brain one instruction came, lift, then only the muscles, everything could flex. Otherwise the muscles don't have the power to flex. Your nerve current is also like electric current. That when I touch a live wire, what happens? My muscles contract. You will find those who are electricians, they are taught that if you have to test a live wire, if you don't have any appliances, by hand you have to test. Never touch with the palm, always touch with the back. Why? That when you touch the current, any live current, your muscles will contract. So if you are just touching with the back of your hands will contract, so you will be away from it, you will be thrown back. But if you are touching with the palm, you will be holding it, you will be grasping it. So that can be fatal, that can result in, that will just kill you. So what it says, that this nerve current is also something like electricity. From where that electricity has been generated? From the resolution in the mind. Yes, lift the weight. From that electricity has been generated, that goes and contracts your muscle, and then only you're lifting the weight. So the cause is again from some undifferentiated. That undifferentiated mind, external stimuli came, that information which was in that undifferentiated form, from there a particular information was projected to give me a feeling this is such and such thing, and then I respond to it. So now you will understand the idea of Trigunatmika. So it was Avyakta, it is the power of the Lord, it is a consciousness alone, because how it has become we don't know. If we try to understand, we can never understand, because as long as you're in the domain of senses, how can you understand something which is beyond the domain of senses? I can understand all the things with the help of senses only which lies in the domain of senses. Beyond the senses, my sense doesn't have the capacity to understand that. So from that state it has came. By seeing the effect I can know. Just the way I can never see light. Do we see light? No. You may say, yes, I'm seeing light. No. If you go to the moon doesn't have any atmosphere. So you will see only the sun, but the sky is dark. Here in the earth, we see in the daytime the entire sky is lighted because we have an atmosphere. The light falls on it and it gets dispersed. Light by itself is not visible. Light becomes visible only when it falls on some object. Otherwise it is not visible. So how can we know the presence of light? When it falls on some object and illumines it, I don't see the light. By seeing the effect, I know there is something called light. How I know that there is something called gravitation? I cannot sense gravitation. When I see something, if I release, it is pulled by the earth. That apple falls, everything is falling. When an object is being dragged, from that, by seeing the effect on that object, I know there is coming gravitation. Otherwise, I cannot know by gravitation by itself. Can I know the magnetic field? No, same thing. When a magnet is there, I throw some iron filing, and this iron filing takes a particular shape, and then I know there is some magnetic power. So this magnetism by itself cannot be realized. By the effect on the iron filings, I know its existence. So here also the same thing. Karyanumeya Sudhi. By seeing the effect, that undifferentiated, how it is becoming differentiated, can I go there and really see it? No. Just even the modern science, they are constantly saying that we are hallucinating. The reality which we are seeing is consensus reality, it is not absolute reality. That we all are hallucinating in the same way. When I see this is red, you also see it is red. If our minds were all segregated and we were all projecting in our own unique way, suppose the wavelength which falls on my eyes and my mind reflects it as red, and your mind reflects it as blue, we could have never interacted, because all our perceptions would have been different. So this speaks of a common mind of which our mind is just a part. So this idea, this mind is one, our mind is just a part of it. So what is this thing that the idea is that reality which we see is not the absolute, it is the consensus, that we are all hallucinating in a same way to say that yes, this is red. You will find nowadays, even in psychology, if someone has some defect in perception, that they are color blinds, so they will say that he is bit different. They won't say he is have some defect. It's not a defect, because we are all hallucinating. He's hallucinating in a different way. It's a bit different way, so he's a bit different. So it is not that he is having some sickness. He's a bit different. He's a bit different from others. So he's a minority. Majority that we have all voted that it is red, he somehow has voted it to be some other color. So that's the question, that he is not a part of the consensus. So what you can get that idea from here? By seeing the karya, that once that avyakta has been differentiated, the three gunas came to play, and then the world is being projected. Whatever I am seeing, if I am not there, the world doesn't exist. This is a wonderful thing in Vedanta, which even science have started understanding nowadays. Very interesting. There's a very interesting conversation between Einstein and Rabindranath Tagore. Very interesting conversation. That in Rabindranath's poem, this idea was there. Through poem, he's actually speaking something very abstract. What he's saying? That I will just give just an interesting story. I will say that in India, I went to some college as a chief guest as the president for some seminar was going on. It was a seminar on some literature of Rabindranath Tagore. So I told that I am not actually, my subject is not literature. I know nothing of so-called Rabindranath's literature. Then he told, no, just you speak of your own tradition. We just get a scope that way, that our main lecture will be on Rabindranath's literature, but you are in the presidential address, just whatever you feel like you speak. Okay. Now the main topic of discussion was so long, it went for 2 hours, and now the students, they all lost their patience. They all started moving out. And now, as in the presidential address now I have to give, I found that the hall is almost empty. So all are just going out, and the principal was also helpless. He told, what can I do? I cannot now force them to sit. I just wanted that they should listen to you. So now, at last I got up, and finding all the students, some have already left, and others, because it takes time to exit. They have all got up from the seat, and they were queuing to the exit. So seeing them queuing to the exit, I just told, okay, if it's your birthday today, your birthday today, and you have arranged a huge feast, and you find and you have invited so many people and no one has turned out, how will you feel? So the entire queue stopped there. They were just going out. Suddenly when I asked that question, they all stopped. That why he's asking this question, this peculiar question, that it's your birthday party, it's your birthday, and you have arranged for a huge party, and then you're expecting the guests to come and no one comes. How will you feel? And then I say some person has been invited as in your college to address, to give the presidential address, and he finds no one is sitting in front of him. How would he feel? So that was the second. So now these boys all these students felt a bit embarrassed. So I found few of them started coming back after I said that how will this chief guest feel? So they started coming back. And then it was a seminar on Rabindranath Tagore. So somehow I have to enter into that topic just to highlight some aspect. And then I just recited a few lines of one Rabindranath song. That is, Jagoter Ananda Jogge Amar Nimantran dhonno holo manav jiban. So like that the song goes on. So what's the idea? That this world is a huge yajna. The Lord has given a huge feast, buffet. The galaxies, stars, earth, everything is there. But no one is there to enjoy. Means that the sun even doesn't know it is sun. Does the sun know that it is a huge, something huge planetary existence? Doesn't know. We sitting on this earth, we sometimes think I am such a small creature crawling on this earth. I am nothing compared to my existence is something physical, it is something almost minuscule compared to the entire universe. But we forget one thing. It is I who give that certificate. When I say the sun, you are big, the sun becomes big. Sun doesn't know it is big. It is me. That's why in the scriptures they say the one who is within you is Mahato Mahiyan. It is greater than the greatest. In my certificate they all exist. Their existence is not there. I still remember George Smoot, he is a Nobel laureate. He did some big research on the black hole. He got the Nobel Prize, and he came to India, and he was visiting some of the our universities, the IITs. And so when he visited the Kharagpur IIT, all the schools nearby were invited. The students were invited to attend a particular session, where he tried his best to bring down his discussion to the school level. And after the discussion, there was a question answer session. And the student, one of the students from one of the school, one girl, suddenly asked a very peculiar question. I still remember. What's the question? That can the entire universe be destroyed in one go? And George Smoot never expected that question. It was after his child's question, but he was modest enough to give reply. He told, see, that with the most powerful atom bomb, we can think of destroying the earth. And what earth is just a small thing, a planetary thing compared to the entire universe. How can you think of destroying the entire universe? It's impossible. It is just like trying to count the number of sand particles when you are walking on the sea beach. That's the thing he thought. We don't know how innumerable stars, galaxies are there. How much power do we have? So he came down to the school level and that gave that answer. But when I was returning in bus with my students, I told, in Vedanta there is an answer. They say, yes, it is possible. In one go, you can just destroy the entire universe. How? In Samadhi. When you go beyond your mind, nothing exists. See, the Atman coming through the mind creates this universe. It's all this projection of the mind, that undifferentiated mind. Through that, it is just like light, white light passing through the prism breaks into the spectrum. It's not something outside which I am seeing. What I am seeing is this conscious principle is passing through the prism. Prism is like the mind. The mind is when this conscious principle is coming in association with the mind. Then it breaks into the spectrum of this world of name and form. So it is all because of the self coming in association with the mind, which is a product of Maya. We don't know how it has happened. It has happened by seeing the effect we know. We can never ask that what actually is that undifferentiated. Just the way we can never ask what actually is the light. By seeing something illumined, I know that light exists. Similarly, seeing this world as the effect, we know that there is something behind that undifferentiated avyakta, which finds manifested as the universe. The self comes in association with that to find. It's a wonderful idea in Vedanta, which do echo. Swami Vivekananda, 125 years back, in West, he told that I am preaching a philosophy of which the Western science is just a distant echo. It's a very distant echo. And we have started realizing that. The more the science is developing, they're finding that it's actually the Vedanta's principle, which is being confirmed by the science more and more. The more it is, the research is progressing. So this is the idea you will find. This avyakta namni, this undifferentiated. Paramesha Shakti, it is not something apart from that conscious principle. It is its Shakti. From that only it has emanated. As we don't know how it has emanated, that's why we say it is Ajnana. That I don't know. Swami Vivekananda in his lecture on Hinduism, we will find very nicely have mentioned that how the undifferentiated has become differentiated. After that he himself is saying, the Hindu gives a very bold answer. And what's the bold answer? We don't know. But how you know? But you don't know that how the. But is it a fact that the undifferentiated has become differentiated? Yes, it's a fact. How you know that? Because through our spiritual practice, we find that from this differentiated we go to that undifferentiated, which gives us the proof that from there it came. So for this, in Samadhi, you find that the world, the manifested universe, has merged into that non-dual consciousness. So that shows that from there it came. Otherwise you can go, how can you go back to that? But how it came, that is never known. That is the jnana. But this, from that only this has manifested. By seeing the manifestation, by seeing the effect, I can know, I can infer the cause. And that's the thing which is being indicated here. Karyanu meya. From seeing the karya, anumeya. Anumeya means infer. That this maya is working, and because of that, yaya jagat sarvam idam prasuyate. The world just, what you say, it pops up. It pops up. When you are in deep sleep, you wake up, open your eyes, the entire existence pops up from within to without. So it is just being projected, prasuyate. So that's how the maya is working. The next verse also will give the paradoxes of this idea, that of this maya, that I cannot say definitely what it is. Is it real? Is it unreal? Nothing I can say definitely. So that's the idea which will be spoken of in the 109th verse, which we will take up again in the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.